Hello, let's recap Grimm Season 4, Episode 12, called Marechaussee. Now, Juliet has just met with Henrietta, and so that's one of the first things that we get to see in this episode. So, Henrietta is a Hexenbeast, as we learn, because she Volgas in order to get Juliet to Volga. And Juliet, at this point, cannot control it. She can't Volga on her own. She has to be provoked. And so she really doesn't have any control over her power. So Henrietta wants to find out what kind of power she wields before she can tell how and if she is able to reverse it. So she takes a little bit of Juliet's blood, and she says, "I'll call you when I know something." We're kind of exploring the relationship between Juliet and Nick. Even Henrietta says that it's wise not to tell Nick that she is a Hexenbeast because his natural instinct will be to kill her, because the Hexenbeasts and the Grimms have a really bad history. So again, these lovers are separated not only by secrets and powers that they're not telling you about, but also the fact that they are natural enemies now. This episode is about a Manticore bounty hunter. So we are introduced to this psychic scam, which is supposedly two Vessen. One of them is at least a Vessen, and he Volgas in order to convince his clients that he is connecting with some spiritual energy. And so it's kind of a wolf big nose thing. If I had to guess, I would say Coyote, but it's not confirmed. Using their Volga in order to gain business is kind of against the Vessen Council. And so we have a bounty hunter who shows up who is a Manticore. And we first saw the Manticore in that episode called Good Soldier, where a woman soldier was raped in the army. A Manticore was her like supervisor, and he killed all of her rapists for her. So the Manticore is, a lion's head and a scorpion tail, and he kills people by injecting the scorpion venom into them and killing them, basically. And they are super, really hard to kill. We've only seen one thing that can kill them, and that is themselves, meaning another Manticore has to kill the other Manticore. That's how that happened in the previous episode. So this guy is, really difficult to kill. And luckily, Wu, who has been in the trailer 24/7, knows everything there is to know about Manticores, because instead of him going case by case, learning this is this Vessen, this is this Vessen, kind of like how Trouble did, he's literally going in the trailer every night and getting all this information all at once, and so he's completely caught up, just as Hank is, who's been in this from Season 2. And so it's kind of a weird thing to say, oh, Wu knows everything about every Vessen right now. But I guess that's how they want to transition him, so that it's not a gradual process, it's just he's in it, he knows everything, and he's already identifying Vessen based on the kill. So Monroe and Rosalie are back from their honeymoon, and they're super cute, but they're kind of being jolted back into reality extremely soon, because they get a call, and they're like, hey, can the police department come over to your house so we can talk about Vessen? And they do, and they recognize that because it was an illegal activity of a Volga, Rosalie suggests it's the council. Monroe talks about the Marechaussee, which is a bounty hunter. It's just a fancy name for someone who collects money for killing on behalf of the Vessen Council. So Rosalie says, okay, you know what, I'll call and see if this is that. But she warns that, it may be Vessen Council business and Grimms should not get involved. And apparently she is right, because when she calls, she gets a message that says, leave this alone, you are not to request for any more information, and you are not to interfere in our business in any way. And if you do, there will be consequences. And so they're basically threatening Monroe and Rosalie. Specifically it's Rosalie, because the council knows her connection to Nick because of Alexander, their agent, who they sent to Portland before. So Nick advises them, yeah, just stay out of it for now. Okay, so royals are in Portland. Last episode we saw Victor and Adeline making a plan to come to Portland, and they have arrived. Sean Renard gets their scans of their passports, and he realizes that Adeline and Victor are both in Portland. And so he goes to pay them a visit, which is really interesting because we've actually never seen Sean and Victor in the same scene. They've always been on the phone or talking about each other, and so now these two actors, Sasha Royce and Alexis Denisov, are in the same room, and they're both fantastic, so it's a really great scene. Victor's just kind of saying, let's not dwell on how you've been treated in the past, Sean Renard, let's just focus on how you fit into the family now, because he is still royal and he is still blood-related, and so Victor is kind of playing off of that, trying to get him to comply with what the royals want, and specifically what Adeline wants, because what they want is Diana back. Now, I think they believe Sean Renard that he doesn't know where she is, but they know that he gave the child to Nick's mother, and so they're gonna make a move. Like, they just kind of made initial contact in this episode, and so it's gonna progress from now on. Sean Renard sends somebody out to find Kelly Burkhart, not to do anything, just to let him know where she is. Meanwhile, he tells Nick and Hank about Adeline being back in Portland. So with the royals being back, Nick warned his mother. He sent her an email, and then he got an email back with a picture of Diana, who's just really cute, and Kelly's being a mom again, so it's really nice. And it's nice to see baby Hexenbeast Diana. Nick warns Juliet, and she gets super upset, and she vogas. And so that's kind of foreshadowing for a Hexenbeast conflict next episode with Juliet and Adeline, because, you know, this is something that's been building from, like, season 1. But now what they did with Juliet's character is that she's no longer the damsel in distress. She now has her own power, and so she's more than just Nick's girlfriend. She is a Vessin. She's part of the main cast. She's part of this fantasy world that they've built. So because she's more than just the girlfriend now, she's going to have a more prominent role, and we see this in this episode. I mean, we've been seeing this. They get the idea to go after Nick because he has interfered with the council one too many times, and so the guys make the call. Nick is the next target here. Nick and the gang actually get the Manticore because he attacks a pimp who has been threatening women by Voga and like scaring them into prostitution, and so the Manticore kills him. So it's not that bad that he's doing this. Kind of like how Rosalie was saying that if it's Vessin Council, maybe it's for a good reason and maybe you should just stay out of it. But as far as Nick's cop badge goes, it's like he's killing people, but then as a Grimm, it's like, well, these are bad Vessin, and the Vessin Council is trying to do justice. Granted, it's not, you know, trial and jury justice, but it's their own type of justice. And I mean, Nick being Grimm, he should respect that, but Nick as a cop, he's like, no, I gotta get this guy. Scene of the crime, they get DNA, and they get this guy, and they bring him in, and Nick is trying to make him Voga, and he's like, you know, beating him up. And everyone's like, guys, calm down, maybe we got the wrong guy. But they definitely know they got the right guy from the photos on his iPad. It's just that he knows that Nick is a Grimm, so he's not gonna Voga to show himself. And so he escapes from jail, obviously, because the stupid guard did what he was explicitly told not to do, which is go near him. He got killed for his troubles, and so the Manticore escapes, goes to Nick's home, and threatens Juliet. And so Nick is like running home, he's scared to death, and Juliet has been home trying to control her Voga when Henrietta calls. And she notices the bubbliness of Juliet's blood, and it seeps into the floor. It goes all the way deep, like to China, like through the floor like acid. And Henrietta is just expressing that she's a very powerful Hexenbeast, what we've suspected from what Rosalie said about Hexenbeasts being made and not born. And so Juliet's like, so what can you do? And apparently there isn't anything Henrietta can do. She's never seen anything like this before, and Juliet does not accept this. However, when she gets threatened by the Manticore in her home, she Vogas, which everyone knew was going to happen, and she actually uses her Hexenbeast powers to deflect his scorpion tail back onto him and into his own self, which is how we know is the only known way to kill a Manticore is by its own poison. She doesn't fully explain this to Nick, so she's still hiding, but we know that Juliet can protect herself now, and she admits this. She can protect herself, especially now with the royals and Adeline back in Portland.